Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
That's right, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. I'm your host, Rob Cramer, alongside, as always, my co-host, Daniel Bobo Kurlan. And Dan, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good. I'm kind of taking a shy relief after that win. That we won in a blowout, but that ninth gave me a little bit of an edge.
Yeah, understandable. As the the Mets held on today to a 9-5 win over the Nationals to take that series down in DC to complete a 5-1 road trip. Very successful. Some of the big news is that DeGrom came back last night. We'll get into that in a couple of minutes. But just like you said, big win today, 9-5, made you sweat it out a little bit at the end there, but they were able to pull it off and come back home on a high note to play these 5 crucial games against the Atlanta Braves this weekend, starting tomorrow night. So very, very cool. What's up, Dan?
I'm going to be at tomorrow night's game.
Oh, really? All right. Very cool. As the Mets will throw out Carlos Carrasco against Kyle Wright, the Braves starter who's having a pretty good year. Carrasco going for his 12th win, so he's not having a shabby year himself. Dan, there's a lot to get into. We just had the trade deadline earlier this week, where the Mets and the Yankees both made some big deals. Very interesting maneuvering there. Maybe a little, on the downside for the Mets. I don't know. You know what? Let's start right there. What is your takeaway from the trade deadline? And you can include these other deals like getting Daniel Vogel back and a couple of the other guys in there, because I count that with these leading up to the deadline deals. What's your takeaway, Dan? If you had to give a letter grade for the Mets, what would you give it?
We give it a B, probably. I'd give these moves a B. Not quite what I hoped for, but could be pretty big moves.
Yeah,
and gotten us closer. Might get us to where we hope to be this year, and hopefully. And the ownership didn't want to give up our top prospects. Hope that turns out. Hope these guys turn out well in the long run.
Yeah, the Mets made,
being the fact that, of course, one of our top prospects, Alvarez, the catcher, they take a long time.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you don't want to give up on a guy that's too young, and you don't want to also hold on to him like he's the be all end all. But yeah, I think overall, to be honest, I'll say this. I give the Mets deadline a C+. I'm very disappointed in Billy Eppler. I understand that there's a lot of factors that went into this. Prices on relievers are through the roof right now. But then this comes, when the Mets traded for Daniel Vogelback, which I do like. He's one of the better moves that I do like. They gave up Colin Holderman for him, which kind of made me a little nervous because the Mets bullpen, is a little thin at the moment anyway. I mean, they did just add Trevor May coming back from the IL today. They also added Michael Givens, who we'll get to in a second. And Michael Givens' first appearance as a Met did not go well at all in a 9-0 game. But I'm not blown away with these moves. I'm not thrilled, and I'm also not saying that I'm not pumped up about getting Darren Ruff. Darren Ruff could very well end up coming here and being a contributing member to a successful postseason team here for the Mets. I'm not saying he can't, but picking up Daniel, picking up Darren Ruff for JD Davis, in my mind, is pretty much a wash. I know he's having a better year than JD right now, but I don't know. Darren Ruff just doesn't really excite me in any particular way. Dan, what are your feelings about Ruff?
Yeah, he doesn't really anything that I'm excited about. It's just one of those things that he's kind of so not anything that's really gonna really feel like, yeah, we've really gotten an improvement over. But at the same, only time will tell how good this move was.
No doubt about it. Only time will tell, because who knows. There was a couple of years ago when the Red Sox went on their World Series run and won the championship in 2018. They made a deadline deal that flew under the radar of picking up Steve Pearce from the Baltimore Orioles at the trade deadline that year. And Steve Pearce not only was a contributing member in that playoff run for the Red Sox, he won World Series MVP. So, who knows what can happen here. I'm not saying that Darren Ruff is not going to be a contributing member, but what I am going to say is that, we've seen the best of Darren Ruff already. I mean, let's be honest. I'm looking at his numbers right here. The guy is 35 years old. His best year in the major leagues came last year with the Giants when he hit 271 with 16 home runs and 43 RBIs. And by the way, the 16 home runs and 43 RBIs were both career highs. This guy's 35 years old, and you're giving up roster players. And did you see the package too they sent for him? They sent JD Davis, Tom Skapsky, whatever his name is, the lefty who got knocked around earlier, who's not really a big prospect, but they got him off the 40-man roster, and 2 A-ball pitchers. So, look, I mean, I'm not saying it's a haul either, because it's, JD Davis is up and down. Who even knows what you're getting out of the other guys? But it just feels like they gave up too much for a guy that I'm not blown away by. What do you think about that, Dan? Do you think they gave up too much for him?
Yeah, I think they did. I'm not really blown away by this guy, all right?
Yeah.
Pull off a move for JD Martinez or something.
That's what I was really hoping. But it looks to me like a lot of these clubs were being unreasonable, because when you really look at it right now, what the heck are the Red Sox hanging on to JD Martinez for? They're still in it, but they also just traded a bunch of guys like Christian Vasquez and a few other players off their roster. So they're obviously in a mode where they don't think that they're going to make the playoffs this year. So I don't understand why you're holding on to JD Martinez. And the other thing was the Cubs too. I was surprised the Cubs held on to Wilson Contreras, because they're going nowhere. Unlike the Red Sox, the Cubs are completely buried, and the Cubs are not making the playoffs by any stretch of the imagination this year. So I don't understand. They moved David Robertson, great, to the Phillies just to screw us over. But I really can't believe that Wilson Contreras and JD Martinez both didn't move.
Yeah, that one really surprised me. They didn't treat Contreras. And especially the fact that now the teams don't get those compensation picks anymore. So it really doesn't make sense that they're not in contention. Why they're holding an expiring contract when they're not in contention?
Well, actually, you know what? It's funny you bring that up, because the deadline, I think it was July 31st, but if it wasn't July 31st, it was right around there. The deadline for them to come to an agreement with the draft picks being attached to free agents was right around there, July 31st, and they didn't come to an agreement. Now, the deal with that was in the collective bargaining agreement that it was all based around a potential international draft. And since they didn't come to an agreement on an international draft, meaning that there will not be one, now there are still actually draft picks attached to free agents. So now you still have to do the qualifying offer, and this system, which is obviously flawed and is not the best, is actually still in place right now, even though they said it was going to go away. Because who would have thought that an international draft would be this difficult to put together? It's ridiculous because there should be international draft. And it's just ridiculous. They haven't come to this agreement yet. But yeah, unfortunately, the draft picks are still attached to free agents now.
So maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, hope whatever they expect is worth it. It didn't really make sense at all why they held onto that expiring contract when they're not in contention.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me either. But right now I'm happy with this Mets team. Even though I just had to get that off my chest, I still like the addition of Darren Ruff. He will help them against lefties. There's no doubt about it. The guy can hit lefties. He is the opposite complement of Daniel Vogelbach, who's a lefty who kills righties, and Darren Ruff is a righty who kills lefties. So very, very good. Makes sense the Mets did that. I probably would have preferred a guy like a Brandon Drury, who they had in the team last year, who got traded to the Padres. And as a matter of fact, while we're talking about that, Dan, what do you think of the Padres, man? What have they done over the last couple of days with the acquisitions of not only Brandon Drury, but Josh Hader, Josh Bell, and Juan Soto from the Washington Nationals, who we just saw in the first game of this recent series against Washington? What was your reaction to that trade?
I think they assured themselves at least making the playoffs. I don't know what'll happen up from there, but they've at least secured themselves of making the playoffs with that lineup.
Yeah, well, you're definitely right about that. They definitely helped themselves with their playoff percentages, because while they're chasing down the Dodgers, and they're probably not going to do that, the Dodgers will probably win yet another Western title over there. The Padres, with this new 3 wildcard format, have definitely put themselves in the driver's seat. And I'm telling you right now, man, that's what makes winning this division even more important right now, because you don't want to end up in a situation where you're in a 3-game series against the San Diego Padres, because we've already seen it this year. First off, the Mets don't play well against San Diego. And, obviously we've seen that not matter in the playoffs. Going back to 88, the Mets went 11-0 against the Dodgers and then lost to them in the championship series. Or if you even want to look recently at a different sport, the Rangers couldn't beat the Carolina Hurricanes in the regular season this year, and then knocked them out in the playoffs this year. So granted, everything changes in the playoffs, but you don't like that matchup. And especially if you end up really falling and these 3 games all end up happening in San Diego, man, going against Yu Darvish, Blake Snell, and Joe Musgrove, and with a lineup that has Tatis, Machado, Soto, and Bell in it, and, Brandon Drury, who's having a good year too, that's a dynamic team, not to mention with Hader closing it out.
Yeah, that's a scary team, but hopefully we keep this up and win the division.
Yeah, that's what the name of the game is now. And as we talk about that, so the Mets took the 2 out of 3 today from the Washington Nationals. Boy, like we were talking about, it got real scary there in the 9th inning. It's a 9-0 turned to 9-5 really quickly. Nice to see Trevor May come out. I mean, well, first up, before we even get to that, terrific game out of Chris Bassett. The guy had an awesome game so far this year against the Nationals. He's 2-0 with 13 shutout innings, so that's pretty good. He's had a good year against them so far. I that was great to see out of Bassett, and what made me feel even better was, like we mentioned, to the aforementioned Trevor May coming back off the IL and having a very nice easy inning there in the 8th before turning the ball over to Givens when things just got out of control. But how nice was that to see Trevor May come back there and look like the old Trevor May?
That was just a breath of fresh air, seeing Trevor May come back and get that 3 up, 3 down inning we needed. and hopefully he'll be able to even keep that up, even hopefully when we're going to need him to hopefully live up to that, even when the games are a little bit closer than that.
Yeah, I mean, Trevor May being on this team right now is even more important with, when you really look at Drew Smith going down and being on the IL for at least the foreseeable future. He's going to be on there. So really, really cool job, getting Trevor May back in the mix. Also, really good job by, the Mets going out there and just trying to fortify the bullpen. But like we mentioned, Mychal Givens took the ball today, a guy who Buck Showalter is very familiar with. He broke in the major leagues in 2015 under Buck with the Orioles. And boy, he just had nothing today. I know it's been a couple of days since he pitched, so maybe he was a little out of sorts. But man, 9-0 against the Nationals team that has no thump. They were rolling over and dying for 8 innings before Givens got in there. And what are you thinking about that, Dan? Does Mychal Givens' first outing as a Met kind of make you a little skittish about seeing him again?
This one has a little bit of a nervous feeling to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, seeing when the Mets acquired Givens in the first place didn't really blow me away. I know he was having a good year with the Cubs, but it just didn't seem like it was gonna translate here. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's gonna end up this being one of his only bad outings for the Mets. But to be honest, I would have liked to see any kind of lefty over Mychal Givens. The Mets desperately need a lefty in the bullpen. They had Chasen Shreve earlier this year, who got released in June, and he had an ERA over 6. So, I mean, really, after about April and a little bit into May, Chasen Shreve was, just a human wrecking ball coming into games, just giving it up, especially in those games against the Astros. The Astros ruined his season. Then the only other lefty they have is Yoeli Rodriguez, who these guys had a couple of decent moments this year, like he was involved in the no-hitter, but I don't really have any confidence at all in Rodriguez. What do you think, Dan? Would you have liked to see another lefty, and do you trust Joely Rodriguez?
Trust Joely Rodriguez now, and we needed another lefty.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think that Billy Eppler dropped the ball on that. I think he started. They talked to him yesterday in the post deadline press conference where he spoke with the members of the media, and they were asking him, why there wasn't any big splashes, why the Mets didn't do X, Y, and Z, and he tried to give. Did you hear his response, Dan? Billy Eppler tried to give some ridiculous response. Did you hear it?
This is a press conference by the time I turned on the TV because I was still waiting for my dinner order to be ready.
Okay. No, I totally hear you on that. But what Billy Eppler was saying was that, that whatever the Mets analytics team broke it down, and if they had traded a couple of their higher end prospects, while it might have helped the team 1% now, it would have hurt the team and the amount of prospects they delivered 1.5% down the line. And okay, so if they traded 2 prospects, it would be 3% down the line. If they traded 3 prospects, it would be 4.5% down. You know what I mean? So that's the way that he explained it yesterday, which just it doesn't make any sense. I mean, you don't know that. You could have made that case in 2015 about, Michael Fulmer being traded for Yoenis Cespedes. But let's put it this way. Michael Fulmer had a decent run for a year or two with Detroit. But if the Mets don't make that trade, they don't make the World Series in 2015. I don't think there's any debating that. And the fact that we're going to sit here and say that, oh, well, even though the Mets have, Francisco Lindor locked up for 10 years, that they didn't want to trade a guy like Ronnie Mauricio. I'm not saying trade Francisco Alvarez. As a matter of fact, I want to do everything but trade Francisco Alvarez. Even Brett Batty. I'm a big fan of Brett Batty. Okay, I get hanging on to him. But there are other guys out there, specifically, a Mauricio type, or even a guy like Vientos, who I really like. But hey, if you could have got something big for him, why not? Why are you going to hold on to these guys? The Mets are in a win now mode. I don't understand it. You have, Max Scherzer just turned 38 the other day. He's making $43 million this year and next year. What are we waiting for?
We got to get everything while we have these guys in our prime.
Yeah. And think about this too. I mean, when you look, it's even more desperate almost when you think about it, because look at all the free agents the Mets have after this year. Chris Bassett's a free agent. Taijuan Walker, he's still here, but I'm pretty sure he has some kind of opt out. DeGrom's going to opt out. They're going to have to figure that out. Trevor May is a free agent. What's his name? Edwin Diaz is a free agent. When you look at all these key pieces to the Mets, specifically the pitching staff too, they have so much uncertainty after this year that I don't understand how they could be sitting on their hands and just saying, oh, well, we're playing to win a World Series this year, but we're playing to win a World Series in 2 to 4 years now too. I get that, guys, but Max Scherzer isn't going to be here in 4 or 5 years. Your best shot to win it right now, because you don't even know for sure if DeGrom's going to be here next year. Of course, we all assume he is. We assume with Steve Cohen, they're going to work something out to bring him back. But there's a chance DeGrom isn't back next year. So I don't understand what we're sitting here waiting around for Ronnie Mauricio, who doesn't even have a path to the big league team because Francisco Lindor is on a 10-year, $340 million contract. I totally understand being responsible with your prospects, but it just seemed a little ill-advised, right?
Yeah, Mauricio, I felt could have been one we could have traded.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, and I'm not saying I'm not sitting here too saying, oh, the Mets should have traded Ronnie Mauricio for minor league left-hander just to get a lefty in here. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying if there was a package out there for any impact player, no matter what it is, whether it's a pitcher or a bat to stick in this lineup, and you turned it down where Ronnie Mauricio was in that and you didn't want to give him up. I don't understand it. It just the coveting of prospects makes sense to me at times, but then I feel like some of these guys just lose their minds with it. I mean, look, you even look at one of our division rivals, the Philadelphia Phillies went and traded one of their top prospects, Mickey Moniak, which I don't know if that was a smart move, but they traded him for Noah Syndergaard. What do you think about Thor being down in Philly right now?
That means they don't like him anymore.
I hear you, man. Seeing Zack Wheeler and Noah Syndergaard in Philadelphia is enough to make me throw up, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's every Met fan's nightmare, and it's going to be really interesting seeing the Phillies roll in to Citi Field or us rolling in there at some point in a couple of weeks. I know the Mets have a series down there a couple of weekends from now, but it's going to be real interesting how things play out where, hey, maybe in a 3-game series, we're playing 2 out of those 3 games, one against Syndergaard and one against Wheeler. And then not to mention, too, just to rub a little salt in the wound, the Phillies picked up David Robertson, who a lot of Met fans, including myself, were coveting. So he'd be closing the games out. So, man, the Phillies had a couple of decent pickups.
It kind of scares me there. I just know Syndergaard's going to get booed a lot this his first time back at Citi Field.
Oh yeah, and that's even if he has the guts to face us this time. Because if you remember earlier this year when the Mets were out in Los Angeles to play the Angels, Noah Syndergaard was lined up to open that series against the Mets, or maybe it was to end the series against the Mets. So he was lined up to pitch against them, and they bumped him back a day just so he didn't have to face them. Or they went out of their way to say that wasn't the reason why they bumped him back, but it seemed all too coincidental that he got bumped back a day just to miss his former team. So it'd be interesting to see if now being a division rival, if he tries to, weasel his way out of facing the Mets again.
Yeah, I just know he's going to get booed, especially the way he lowballed us.
Yeah. Yeah. And he sold us a bill of goods, He kept telling Met fans the whole time, oh, I want to be a Met. I want to retire a Met. I don't want to leave New York. And then he turned around and signs with the Angels out of nowhere. And in his press conference is talking about how the Mets have all this uncertainty. Well, I hope you enjoyed being 20 games under 500 with the Angels this year, Noah. And I hope you also enjoy, being a mediocre, barely above 500 team with the Phillies right now. The Phillies have some good players, but for some reason it just never works out there.
Yeah, that one I'm never sure, but yeah, that freaking annoys me. I'm hoping we don't make that mistake with DeGrom.
Yeah, the Mets cannot. That cannot be a thing where, now Jacob DeGrom is an ex-Met after this year too. They got to do whatever they can to lock this guy back up. And
a little bit easier to convince, especially the fact we don't have to worry about a situation where, like last year, when we made with the way Syndergaard left us, we didn't have him. We hadn't gotten. Buck Showalter hadn't been announced as Mets manager yet. We also didn't have a GM yet, so it was like all those things that kind of like it was like a shambles during the offseason. Somehow by luck we pulled off the Matt Scherzer deal. Somehow we were able to pull it off before we had a G. I forgot. I think that may have been before Billy Eppler was announced.
Yeah, you're right. And what also made sense to me too is that, Max Scherzer saw the vision. Max Scherzer saw the vision of Steve Cohen and coming in here and joining this group and putting everything together. And Noah Syndergaard just didn't, I guess, have the patience to see that vision either. And unfortunately for him, now he has to spend 2022 in mostly with the Angels, and then he'll finish up with the Phillies, and who knows what's going to even happen there. I mean, right now they're definitely in the mix for that second or third wild card. So they have a chance to have a playoff appearance right now, but it remains to be seen how far they go, because just like we were talking about the Mets before, there's a hell of a good chance that Philadelphia could end up playing San Diego in that wild card round. And boy, if you're the Phillies, the last thing you want to do is be going up against that lineup and that pitching staff, especially after Tatis comes back in a couple of weeks.
Yep, exactly. It's gonna be an interesting next 2 months of the season for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be. Yeah, and it's gonna be a fun pennant race, which is something that we really haven't had here since 2016. 2019 it was a little bit, but once they went out and got knocked around in that series by the Cubs, and then they had a couple of other missteps against the Braves and everything, it just seemed like the writing was on the wall that even after the Mets had that great run with the 8-game or 9-game winning streak, whatever it ended up being, you could just kind of tell that they had built a lot of that on beating up on the bad teams like the Pirates and the Reds and a whole bunch of the worser teams in the National League. So very cool, you know, series that we're in right now. I mean, right now, Dan, we got a pivotal 5-game series coming up against the Atlanta Braves at Citi Field. Just off the bat, man, what's your thoughts going into it? What do you think the Mets have to do coming out of this series to prove to you that that we don't have to worry about the Braves for these? Is it simply winning 3 out of 5, or do you want to see them put a hurting on the Braves in these 5 games?
I think they need to at least take 3 out of 5.
Yeah.
And no less than that they need to do, all right? They need to come out of this series in first place.
Yeah. And I mean, right now they got a 3.5 game lead. So the only way that they're coming out of this series not in first place is if they get swept and lose all 5 games. So, I mean, because even if they lose 4, they'd still have a half game lead, I believe. So, the Mets just really have to go out there and take care of business. I mean, it's a really interesting bunch of pitching matchups this weekend, especially with the doubleheader thrown in on Saturday, where you're going to have the series starting off tomorrow with Wright against Carrasco, the game you're going to. Then on Friday, it's Ian Anderson against Taijuan Walker. On Saturday, it's going to be you got I'm doing this off the top of my head too, so I'm trying to remember. I know the Mets have David Peterson lined up to pitch one of those games on Saturday, and Max Scherzer as well. The Braves are going to have Odorizzi and Fried, who's probably their ace at this point. So that's still 4 good pitchers going that day too. David Peterson hasn't been a slouch at all this year. Obviously, Max Scherzer is a future Hall of Famer. Fried has been great, and Odorizzi is the new pickup from Houston. And what were you saying, Dan?
Got DeGrom on the bump.
And that's on Sunday. Jacob DeGrom is going to be pitching against Steven Strider, who it's going to be interesting to see him, as Steven Strider has really come on the scene these last couple of months for the Braves and has really shown to be a hell of a good young pitcher. Just another one of the many the Braves have been running out there right now. And it's crazy to me too that they've been doing all this without, on paper, their best pitcher, Mike Soroka. So the Braves are right there, man, and it's really going to take a total team effort and a big weekend to hold them off. One other thing that I thought was big too is that in that trade for getting Odorizzi from the Houston Astros, the Braves gave up their lefty bullpen ace Will Smith. So I think that's big too, because that's really going to hurt their bullpen down the line. Obviously, they went out and picked up also Raciel Iglesias from the I was going to say California Angels, from the Anaheim, Los Angeles, California Angels, whatever the hell you want to call them. They picked up Raciel Iglesias, who was their closer, who's having a pretty good year. So you add another, high-end arm at the end of that bullpen to go along with guys like Kenley Jensen and all these other pieces they have out there. They did also trade Jesse Chavez. So that does hurt their pen a little bit too. But I don't know, Dan, what do you think right now? Do you think as the teams all stand right now, are the Mets the best team in the National League East still?
I feel we might be, and everything's gonna go right on this whole weekend series.
Yeah. Yeah, and over the next 2 weeks, this is going to be the probably. I mean, and you can't even really say probably, because it definitely is going to be the most 2 pivotal weeks in the series for the Mets, as between tomorrow, which is August 4th, and August 18th, the Mets and the Braves will play 9 times, 5 games here this weekend and then 4 in Atlanta. So a lot of room to make up there. In between, they're going to play 3 against Cincinnati and 3 against Philly, both at home. They got this 11-game homestand starting tomorrow now, which is going to be really nice. The Mets, hopefully at home, they've played great on the road, but also even better at home this year. Let's hope they can pad that record because, obviously Cincinnati is a step down in competition, but when you got the Braves and the Phillies on this homestand, and then as soon as you finish up, you wrap that up to go to those 4 games in Atlanta. Like I said, you're going to 3 in Philly after that, and then 2 in the Bronx against the Yankees with no off day. So this is going to be a very dramatic, very pivotal 2-week stretch for the Mets. And by the time it's over, right around August 23rd or 24th, we're really going to know a lot more about this club, Dan. And do you think the Mets are up to the challenge?
I think this team's up to the challenge right now. We got everything good. Hopefully, as long as no one gets hurt, we have a great chance.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. All right, and now that we got the Mets talk out of the way, where we talked about all the things going on with the New York Metropolitans, now we're going to jump right into some little Yankee talk. We'll recount exactly what happened to them at the trade deadline, as the Yankees pulled off a couple of pretty decent moves, and then we're going to jump into some NFL training camp, as it's really starting to heat up right now. Jets and the Giants on a collision course as they play a preseason game this month. Both teams are going to play 3 games leading up to the beginning of the NFL season in early September. So it's really just a couple of weeks away, Dan. 6 weeks away to NFL opening day. Isn't that crazy?
Time goes by quick. Oh, it's almost going to be close to It's I can't believe it's getting that close to football season already.
Yeah, you're right, man. You're right. But as we were talking about, we got the Yankees right now. As boy, did you see Gerrit Cole, his bad day today? As he allowed 6 runs in the first inning. Luckily for him, he was able to pull it together, and he ended up throwing 5 scoreless frames after that. So he ended up throwing 6 innings, 6 runs, which looks a little bit better. But the Yankees ended up dropping 2 out of 3 to the Mariners in this series right now at home, which is unheard of. Even when the Mariners had Griffey back in the day, they never would be taking 2 out of 3 at the stadium. And now the Yankees are going on a 9-game road trip, where after they drop this game today, they have off tomorrow. They're going to St. Louis for 3, which is a pretty interesting, pretty cool series that you really don't see too often. Yankees Cardinals. Then they go to Seattle on next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So the Yankees will be on the West Coast there. And they come back to have 3 against Boston. And it's not going to get any easier for them. Once they come home and have their homestand, it's going to be 3 against Tampa Bay, 4 against Toronto, and 2 against the New York Mets. So things are not getting easy for the Yankees until the end of the month, where they go out to Oakland and Anaheim. So, they should have a pretty good time out there. And speaking of Oakland, the Yankees raided their coffers one last time as they pulled out a big trade, picking up Franklin Montas, the starting pitcher, who is a top of the line starter really for the most part. He's a top tier guy, and they would also pull out Lou Trevino. Dan, you there? Dan?
I'm there. You were freezing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We froze up there for a minute. So, okay, I'll just pick up from there. So the Yankees pick up Lou Trevino and Montas. What do you think of that trade, Dan? That's a pretty good deal for the Yankees.
I think they got a good deal. I feel this deal is going to be 50-50 in terms of if it'll work out or not.
Yeah.
Traded for ever. I don't think it's ever pitched in a big spot before.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong about that. Playing in Oakland, he's definitely not in these high leverage spots that he's going to be coming into at Yankee Stadium. But he's definitely a good move. I think the Yankees did a pretty good job at that, right? And I don't think they gave up too much.
They didn't give up too much, so they made a good trade.
Yeah, they were able to make a couple of them.
It's a good trade.
What's that?
It's a good trade, but we still have to see it all play out.
Yeah, oh well, no doubt about it, man. And they were also able to. What do you think about this? As the Yankees traded Joey Gallo to the LA Dodgers for a reliever who actually has been over his last 2 years. He's 0-9 with a ERA over 5. So the Yankees didn't really get much for him. But just to get Joey Gallo off the team, what do you think about that?
I kind of not really sure that trade really was the trade that needed to be made.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that it was good in the sense though that that they just got him off the team. Because, and no disrespect to Joey Gallo, I'm sure he's a nice guy, and I'm sure he was well liked by his teammates. But he just could not get over the hump here in New York, and he couldn't deal with what Yankee fans were giving him. Which, look, if he was a Met, I'd be booing the shit out of him too if he was hitting 160 with a handful of home runs and barely 20 RBIs, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it might be an even bigger pressure cooker playing for the Mets than it is for the Yankees.
You might be right about that because, with the Mets, you're not expected to do much, and they have that, the Mets have a much more losing mentality than the Yankees overall. So yeah, I definitely agree with you that sometimes there is more pressure when you come to the Mets. Unfortunately for Joey Gallo, he just didn't live up to the pressure here in New York. A very, very poor tenure here in his just about a year as a New York Yankee. He spent the second half of last year here. He spent the first half of this year here. Just could never get it together. Very interesting job by the Dodgers to pick him up. What do you think? What's the Dodgers' motivation to pick him up, Dan? I don't really see how he fits into into that team or that lineup at all.
I feel this was a trade that really didn't make sense for the Dodgers wise either.
Yeah, very strange. But I think it was a good job by the Yankees just to get him off the team and in a new location where, hopefully he could get his career back on track. Because I'm telling you right now, I was reading the paper the other day, and I saw this quote from Joey Gallo where he was talking about how he remembers coming into Yankee Stadium as a Texas Ranger, and if there was a guy who was struggling or a guy that had a big name to live up to and he wasn't playing well, he was talking about how he remembered seeing this guy get booed out of the building and how surreal it is that now that guy is him. So he was talking about how other teams have come up to him and tell him to keep his head up, and how his teammates have been great to him and tell him to keep his head up and just try to really just give a load off on his mind to Joey Gallo. It's really sad to hear him talk about that because he was talking about how it makes him feel like a piece of shit. And I can understand that feeling when you feel like you're letting your team down, you feel like you're letting the fans down, you feel like you're letting yourself down. Just a real shame how that all worked out for him, right?
Yeah, just a shame how it worked out, but that's how
Yeah, speaking of Yankee outfielders, though, I do really like the addition that we spoke about last week of them picking up Andrew Benintendi. He really hasn't done much yet, but this is a guy that's going to put contact on the ball. He's going to play pretty good outfield defense. And the other thing the Yankees did too was trade Jordan Montgomery, who was the number 4 starter, to the St. Louis Cardinals for center fielder Harrison Bader, former Gold Glover, who actually current Yankee Matt Carpenter was teammates with him on the St. Louis Cardinals, and said that he thinks that Harrison Bader is the best center fielder defensively in baseball. So he said Yankee fans are going to love seeing this guy patrol the outfield there. And I don't blame him, because especially, Yankee Stadium has a pretty big outfield with some pretty big alleys there. So picking up a guy that could really, pick it like that is a very good move. I'm a big fan of Harrison Bader. He's actually injured right now, but he's due to come back soon. Dan, what'd you think about that? I mean, a team like the Yankees that is kind of hard up for pitching right now, especially starters, where you got to remember too, they just put Luis Severino on the 60-day DL, so he's not coming back anytime soon. What do you think about a team like the Yankees trading their basically number 4 pitcher for what amounts to a backup center fielder?
I kind of think they it's a bad trade.
You think it was a bad trade? You said
could hurt them in the long run. Bad trade.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. It could hurt. It could definitely hurt them in the long run. I mean, I really like the depth that it gives them from a defensive perspective and on the bench and everything. But you already have Aaron Hicks, who's a pretty good defensive center fielder himself, and I know he's not what he used to be, and obviously his bat is nowhere what it used to be. But Aaron Hicks has that spot right now, and at least you have a person in that spot. I mean, when you look at it on the other side with on the starting pitching, who are the Yankees plugging in there now? It's going to be very interesting to see how they hold this, because the Yankees, their relief pitching is going to get a little bit of a break, where Zack Britton is just starting to throw and work his way back from the injured list. But Aroldis Chapman's not himself. Holmes is just starting to get his knocked around, as he had been great all year. He had a bad appearance before the Mets series, and he looked decent against the Mets in that 8th inning that he pitched. But this guy, this Yankee pitching staff is definitely in a state of flux. And you know what? Let's wrap up the Yankees here right now. If you were a Yankee fan, Dan, and I know it's a crazy thought, but if you were a Yankee fan going into a playoff series, do you trust Gerrit Cole?
I think we have yet to see. I think they have yet to see if they can trust Gerrit Cole yet. The playoffs is going to be the big equalizer for Gerrit Cole.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Because I mean, look, Gerrit Cole threw some pretty damn good playoff games in his tenure as a as a member of the Houston Astros, and also he threw a pretty good one with in the wild card game with the Pittsburgh Pirates as well. But we have definitely not seen that in a Yankee uniform yet.
Exactly, and the Yankees, it's a whole different animal going to be pitching for them in the playoffs. Yeah,
and I mean, look, if you're going to be getting lit up by the likes of, he allowed a 3-run homer today to Eugenio Suarez. Carlos Santana hit one off him. Former Met great, as I roll my eyes, Jared Kelenic also took him deep today too. As Kelenic is up there because their star outfielder got hurt. That kid too is having a phenomenal year for Seattle. He actually came up against the Mets too and had a pretty good series in May when Seattle was out here. So but Kelenic is back in the big leagues now because of that injury. And it's going to be interesting to see how he works out. But what do you think, Dan, as we wrap up this talk now? Now that Kelenic is back in the big leagues, we see what the Mets have been getting out of Edwin Diaz. If you still had to make that trade, would you still make that trade, Kelenic for Diaz, even if it was straight up?
I might make that trade. We needed a closer at the time, so right now it looks like it's working in our favor, and we'll really know more how this season ends. Will be a big telling tale.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. And also, you know, so with that, let's because I do agree with you. Let's move on. We're coming to the end here right now, as I do want to touch on a little football before we get out of here. And Dan, what are you seeing from training camp so far? Jets and the Giants both underway. Games are about to start. What are you seeing so far?
Well, from everything I've been seeing so far, the Giants have been looking good so far in training camp. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Phil Jones looks like he's game ready for what is going to be his make or break year. I've said.
Yeah, this is definitely Daniel Jones' make or break year, because if because the Giants have to decide after this season if they're going to pick up that 50-year option on him. And look, if Daniel Jones is going out there and having these 17 for 35 days with a couple of interceptions and maybe a fumble or two, he's not going to get that option picked up. So you're definitely right about that. And how do you think he's looked so far in training camp? Has he looked pretty good?
Or he's looked pretty good from the footage I've seen. Other thing I got to say about the training camp, of course, a couple of years ago, the Giants moved their training campsite to the Meadowlands right next to the stadium.
Yeah.
Down as at first I thought, oh good, I'll go see them practice now that they moved their training camp from Albany to right next to the Meadowlands, right next to the stadium.
Yeah.
Only Jersey Transit has failed big time, not offering train service for those practices in person, unfortunately.
Of course, right? So, yeah, I mean, and the giant. I'm sorry, Dan. What were you saying?
During the season, it's worked well that they offered a train service to the game. That was kind of bummed me out that I didn't see that he didn't offer their train service to the Meadowlands for the season.
That is like, cool.
On the scene.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it, man. And the Giants preseason slate starts 8 days from today. Actually, by the time everybody is seeing this, it'll be a week. Next Thursday, the Giants open up their preseason schedule against the New England Patriots on Thursday night, August 11th. So that's going to be a pretty cool game to watch, as the Giants and the Pats. It's always, even in spring training, it's always interesting to watch those two teams lock up. And the my team, the New York Jets, will be doing that the next day against the Cincinnati Bengals next Friday, August 12th. They'll be opening up their preseason schedule. A lot of good things I've seen so far. Especially on the Jets side. I know just today, Zach Wilson had a perfect day out there after a couple of turnovers the last couple of days. He went 8 for 8 out there today, making a couple of big connections. He's been working well with Denzel Mims, one of their less heralded receivers. I'm expecting some pretty good things from our football teams this year, Dan. Maybe not, the teams making the playoffs, but I still see in November and December the Jets and the Giants playing at least, meaningful games, even if you're, kind of fooling yourself into thinking they're going to make the playoffs. At least it's going to be a possibility in there, instead of by the time Halloween rolls around, both of our seasons are over. Right. I think that's a slightly optimistic way to look at it, right?
Yep, exactly. I feel like I'll be potentially shoveling snow in December and watching the game.
Exactly. Even though we'd be doing that either way, but at least you'd be watching a game that hopefully has some playoff meaning behind it, right?
Exactly. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, and you know what? It's definitely time for Daniel Jones to do that for you guys. Saquon Barkley is looking in pretty good shape now. It just looks to me like it's time to make that jump. And from my Jets perspective, sure we got this young quarterback, but there's so much young talent on this team right now where there's no reason to not have any optimism. And it's the same thing with you guys. The Jets also too, they just brought in Quan Alexander in a linebacker to really help shore up their linebacker corps. I think that's going to be really good. The Jets defense has been upgraded so much in this offseason. I'm very happy with what Joe Douglas has done. Obviously, the additions of Johnson and Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed and Jordan Whitehead. And obviously the re-addition of Carl Lawson coming back from his injury. I'm really pumped up, Dan. And as we're about to close it up out here, what are your final thoughts on training camp so far for the Giants?
My final thoughts are this team looks good, and so far our draft picks look like they're living up to what we expect.
Yeah, Thibodeau has definitely looked good in training camp. You're right about that. And how do you like how Daboll is running training camp this year? You think he's got this team clicking the right way so far?
I think so far he's got this team clicking the right way. I feel like we finally have a coach with credibility.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Way, and I expect us to at least get no more than at least potentially one win short of being in the playoffs. You have to at least get to that point this year.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, man. I think both of our teams have the opportunity in front of them to do that, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch it unfold this year. As long as our teams aren't starting 0-4 or out of 5, 0-5 out of the gate, I think we're going to be in a pretty good position come Thanksgiving, where we're going to be watching some slightly meaningful football. At least let's keep our fingers crossed on that. And
the Giants still in contention while I'm watching a game and I'm eating my Thanksgiving dinner on one of those. I'm probably going to have to set up one of those. One of those tables that you kind of put on usually.
Yeah, like a TV dinner type table, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So, hey,
I might have to bring that out because by the time usually the Thanksgiving food is ready, it's usually right around 7 or something like that. So
I'm with you on that, man. I would definitely love. Even though I'm a Jets fan too, I would love to see you guys playing some meaningful games late in the year too.
Hopefully that they'll be seeing the Giants beat up on the fucking Cowboys.
Yep, and you're right about that. It's always fun to root against the Cowboys, especially on Thanksgiving. All right, and with that, I think we're gonna wind it down right now. We're gonna about to get out of here. Thank you once again, everybody, for tuning in and watching the Best Seat in the House podcast. Appreciate all the support. We want to give a heartfelt shout out to Vin Scully and the Scully family as he unfortunately passed away. Dan, real quick before we're out of here, do you have anything to say about Vin Scully?
Vin Scully, the man's an icon. I mean, I've listened to some of his play-by-play via the MLB ever since we got in the days where you have things like the MLB app, and even in Sirius XM because you would get every game, all these games. I would give Vin Scully a listen sometimes. The guy is an icon. He's called World Series. He's called Super, which I feel people kind of overlook in a Vin Scully's legacy, that the guy did call some Super Bowls.
Yeah.
And he was also in the TV booth for one of the biggest moments in Mets history, probably one of the biggest games I got to be at. Then 4 years old me was at Game 6. He was there in the booth on the TV booth for one of the biggest games in Mets history, and I felt he did a match. If you look at the footage from Game 6, he seemed to have did a job. I remember seeing in an interview with him saying how he saw how loud the stadium was Shea Stadium was that night, and how loud the stadium was going to erupt. He did a good job, a lot of not over talking during the games, and he would sometimes on the field at times when it needed to speak for itself, like he did at Game 6, how you saw after that ball went under Buckner's leg, the Knight scored. He stayed silent and brought the fans watching at home into the stadium, giving them an idea of what it was sounding, how loud and how explosive the crowd was in Shea Stadium that night.
You're so right, man. And you know what? You said one of the biggest moments in Mets history. It's one of the best moments in baseball history, one of the most viewed World Series moments of all time. And we're going to leave you with that. I'm Rob Cramer alongside my co-host, Daniel Bobo Kurlan. Thank you for tuning in. This is Best Seat in the House podcast, but even more so, this is Vin Scully.
With 2 out in the 10th, 5-4 Red Sox. Ray Knight at first, Kevin Mychal at third. 2-2 to Mookie Wilson. And it's going to go to the backstop. Here comes Mychal to score the tying run, and Ray Knight is at second base. And he pops it in the air, foul off to the right. Gedman coming over. He will not have a play. That was a wild pitch.
Way inside. Gedman reaches for it. You see he hardly moved as far as shifting, and it gets by him, a wild pitch. Apparently not near where he was looking for the pitch.
5-5 in a delirious 10th inning. Line drive foul.
And Marty Barrett was out of position because they had Knight really picked off, but Stanley didn't see him. There it is again. You see, he just reaches for the ball. Down goes Mookie. It kind of sailed inside. And here comes Barrett in to talk to Stanley, because had Mookie hit just a weak ground ball, Barrett was way out of position because they had a good chance to get Knight at second base.
Can you believe this ball game at Shea?
Oh, brother.
So the winning run is at second base with 2 out, 3-2 to Mookie Wilson. Little roller up along first, behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it. If one picture is worth 1,000 words, you have seen about 1,000,000 words. But more than that, you have seen an absolutely bizarre finish to Game 6 of the 1986 World Series. The Mets are not only alive, they are well, and they will play the Red Sox in Game 7 tomorrow.